So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, and their challenges, and what's really driving them forward. So, this afternoon, I'm delighted that we have with us John Butterfield, who's the owner at Innovate Furniture. So, John, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd
All
like,
right, no problem.
thank you. Yeah, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Innovate Furniture, what you do, and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So my name's John. I started Innovate back in 2011, and primarily it was hotels that we did. We sort of dealt with hotels. My background's hotel furniture,
Yeah,
and when I left my previous employer, I had this vision of sort of going in and doing smaller boutique hotels with the furniture
yeah,
and public areas. Anyway, cut a long story short, fast forward a couple of years. I had a friend of mine. He said, "Look, I've got this job, John." He said, "Can you come and help out?" He said, "It was a friend of a dog's babysitter's owner." And he basically said, "Look, I've got this job on the Strand. Can you come and help us?" So I met this guy down there, really nice fella, and his team. They'd been let down by somebody else, and it was a show apartment. And to be fair, since then, it's sort of I rang Richard, who looks after the factory for us, and said, "Look, Rich, this is where we need to be." So we almost got rid of the hotels,
yeah.
and we tailored the business purely to do high-end residential. We made a lot of mistakes along the way. You know, we sort of learned a lot of expensive mistakes as well along the way.
Yep.
But so far, like I say, we're now a team of 7. We've just made our third factory move. No, second factory move. We're now just we're an established business in that market. So we've got a good reputation in the high end. We do a lot of penthouses. We do show apartments, we do footballers, we do pop stars, we do all that sort of stuff. So it's a nice market to be in. We work in some very nice places, and sometimes you go away from these places pinching yourself and wondering how you managed to get into it.
Yeah.
But it's working, you know. So and we're very busy, which is good.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So look, I mean, looking back when you were growing up, is this what you saw yourself doing, or did you have other plans at that point?
No, never. To be fair, never. So when I remember I had a careers advice meeting, and I'm 16, 15 maybe, no idea what to do. And I'm sat in this meeting with the careers advisor, and we're sort of going through all these tick boxes on a piece of paper. Do you want to do this? Do you want to? And I remember it was working outside, working with my hands, and I'd always my old man's a mechanic, and I was going to be a mechanic. And he said, "Look, John, don't be a mechanic." He said, "Because now there's no such thing as an old school mechanic. They're all technicians. You
Yeah.
know, you plug stuff in, you change exhaust." He said, "Don't do it." Right, fine, okay. So I'm sat in this careers advice, and the teacher said, "What do you want to do?" Tick the boxes. And I said, "Look, why fancy being a brickie?" And she went, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're too clever to be a brickie. Why don't you be a joiner?" And I went, all right, I'll be a joiner. And it was as easy as that, really. And to be
Brilliant.
fair, I left school straight away. Well, left school at 16. I did quite well in my GCSEs, all told. Went enrolled into college. So then I was a joiner for I'm still a joiner now, really. But I did a 3-year apprenticeship. Went to Leeds College of Building. I worked for a company in Beeston where, first couple of years were a bit of a mess about. You know, it was easy being 16, 17. You
Yeah.
know, earning a bit of money, out with your mates every weekend. But then I just saw when I hit my 3rd year apprenticeship, I thought I was going to knuckle down. And at the time, I was working for a company called Woodform. Unfortunately, that company went bust back in 2000 and when was it? 2000. They went bust as it goes.
Right.
We just out of my apprenticeship, and I'd been laid off. And I remember I went into the offices. I phoned the MD, and I went to the offices. His name was John, as it goes. And John, I said, "There's more to me than just being a joiner. Can I help with your sales?"
Yep.
And at this point, I'd only been maybe 19, 20. So I knew that I always wanted to get off the bench. I
Yep.
didn't know in what way, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
always had aspirations of sort of not being a joiner forever, you
Yep.
know? So he said no in the end. And I got offered a job making hotel furniture at a company called Curtis up on York Road. And they were quite a prestigious company at the time. They were big.
Yep.
They were probably 4 or 5 people there there were 4 or 5 companies around the country that did hotels,
Yep.
and Curtis were one of them. But they were they'd gone through quite a lot of turmoil. They were a big
Yep.
shop fitters back in the olden days. Anyway, I stayed there for it'll have been 2005. It was a drunken conversation with one of the directors. And similar to what I'd done previously, I'd been on the bench there for 5 years, and I sort of looked after a few bits and pieces project wise. And I went to go speak to one of the directors at Christmas. I said, look, Simon, I said, there's more to me than just been on the bench, any jobs in the office. So he had a conversation with the MD. Come sort of January, February, they said, look, John, yeah, we thought about what you said. You know, would you like to come and help out Richard in the office, you know, doing the draft work, the design work, the cutting sheets. So I did that for, 5 years. And then they were making changes, and they asked me to look after the project management. So they had this like, we had a job planner where we had a big sales force at this point now. The business had grown. There's a big sales force. It's not a big sales force, and the business had grown to the point where the factory couldn't manage the amount of sales that they were generating. So we used to have these weekly meetings. He pulled me to one side and said, look, Johnny, so I've got this opportunity. He said, would you like to look after the overflow sales? He said, so we'll have this meeting every week. We'll look at the job planner. We'll see what projects we can earmark for outsourcing. You know, he said, and then the yours, you can find your own suppliers. You can do your own QC checks. He said, you can do your own. We'll go through the orders and the schedules, and we'll work out the profit margins and what we're going to issue for free, and, you know, lighting or hinges or whatever. He said, and you can manage those projects. And I remember the biggest projects I did, I've been doing that for sort of 2 or 3 years. And we did a massive big health spa down in Essex. And I remember the FD pulled me to one side and said, look, Johnny, said, that job's gone so well. It's one of our, including the factory, one of our best paying jobs. Fast forward a couple of years from there, and they sort of tried to move me again into, what was it? It was more looking after the sites, looking after the installs. And I sort of said, look, it's not for me. They were working away a lot. I had a couple of young kids at the time. And I said, look, no, it's not for me, this one. So they moved me into technical sales and estimation. And then this is where it gets a bit dark now. So I actually got the sack from there purely because I'd hurt my knee playing football. They were looking at making redundancies. The business wasn't as busy. My job was shared with one of the directors. And my name got earmarked to be one of the cheaper people to make redundant of the two of us. So I thought, well, I don't have qualifications in project management, but I've got the experience. You know, I've got these contacts in designers and that, and I've got the contacts in manufacturing. So I'd had this idea thinking, well, if I'm doing it for this guy, why can't I do it for myself? So I did that. I did that for a couple of years out of the back bedroom. And I used to earn my money by doing the installation. So there'd be times when I'd ask a company to manufacture it. I'd win the sale. I'd ask somebody to manufacture it for me, one of the contacts that I'd made previously. I'd end up picking furniture up at 4 o'clock in the morning, loading it into the back of the car, driving to London, doing a 12-hour, 14-hour day, driving back and doing it all again the next day. So it was hard work, really hard work. And then, I got let down by a supplier, and I went. My other half, she lived in Farsley at the time, and it was a group of mills sort of just just sort of where she was, and I popped in to see a friend of mine about some business cards, and I saw a factory. She said, factory to let, and I phoned Claire and I went, I'm going to get a factory. And she went, you what? I said, I'm going to get a factory.
Brilliant.
I signed up for this factory. I had £5 grand in the bank. I drove to Hull. I bought a saw. I had no work on at this point. I drove to Hull, bought a saw, took a couple of guys on, no idea what we're going to do. And then the factory just sort of went from there. That was the first one. And then we won a couple of projects in Leeds. I won a big project down south for a building company. And then the factory just grew then. So we took on another unit across the other side of the mills to put our polish shop into. We did our own sort of French polishing and bits and pieces. And then we moved to our second factory in Pudsey to put it under one roof. And we just gone from there. The new factory we're in now is a lot more. It's just evolved. We've sort of brought it all in house. So we've now got our own veneer presses, our own CNC. We've got our own polish shop. You know, we're a team of 7. We've got a polisher. We've got a CAD designer. You've got a team of 4 joiners, a machinist, Kirk in the office. So the package is there now. So brilliant. It's been a hard 13 years, but it's been, when you look back at it, it's sort of been quite a rewarding 13 years. You know, it's still tough. It's still tough. You know, the market's still tough. And even though people have got money, the rich people are rich for a reason, because they don't like spending it that often. They like to know they're going to get a good value for money, which, to be fair, when we meet new clients, somebody would say to me, look, John, do you charge more because of this person or that person? I always say, no, I don't. I charge what I think it's worth. But on the back of that, you get the customer service, you get the aftercare, you get the personal touch. I'm there, that's it. That's 13 years in 5 minutes, So
Amazing. And what would you say some of the biggest issues and challenges you've had to overcome in those 13? You've obviously highlighted a few, but what would be
I think a team, having a good team is massive. And I found that the biggest thing that was massive for me was, again, cut a long story short, Richard, who was my boss when I left, when I was at Curtis. So when I went off my bench into the offices, Richard was my boss.
Yep.
Now Richard works with us and he's been with us for 8 years. And to be fair, that was a conversation with Richard. We had this big job down south in the very first factory, and he took a punt. He took a, and I said to Richard, look, I've got this job, Rich. I need help looking after the factory. I've not advertised it. Do you want to give it a go? And if you don't, no hard feelings, I'll advertise it. And I met him and his wife, because I know them both quite well. I met them for a couple of pints. I explained what we're doing, where I wanted to be, and he just said, well, I'm in.
Brilliant.
And that's it. So having somebody that's the biggest thing, I think, is having a really good team. Sorry, excuse me, and having somebody that can manage and look after the factory as and care about it as much as you do. So I think in respect of that, having somebody who can run the team for you, but also the team on the back of it is massive, a massive part of it, along with the work, of course, know, but so staff have been they can be quite challenging. It's challenging to find new staff. And people that get what we're about, in terms of the quality and the people we're dealing with and the professionalism, that's massive. And then it's like every business, it's managing the cash. It's managing the cash. It's making sure touch wood, over the last 13 years, we've been very lucky with bad debts. We've not had many bad debts, but purely because the people we're working with and the management. And then other than the obvious, COVID and recessions, and battling through it, but resilience, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard sometimes, but you've got to keep going,
Absolutely. Resilience comes up a lot when I talk to people about the challenges and what they've learned about themselves. And so what would you say are the biggest learnings about business, about running and growing a business?
Like I say, team. The team's massive.
You
need to have trust in. You need to have trust in your team. I also think it's having the right people. And we had this conversation. People in the right place doing the right jobs, but also be adaptable. Because I think in a business our size, it's all right having structure and saying to people, "That's your role. That's your role. That's your role." But if you ever get to the point where you're behind in one of those departments, you need people that are prepared to drop in and muck in. And I'm not excluded from that. If I've got to go sweep up, or I've got to, I'm reluctant. I don't want to do it anymore, but I will go and do it. So it's having people that you can pull into different areas. Who, all right, they don't love it, but they will do it for the team, the good of the team. So it's actually fair.
I think it's really key. Certainly, as we grow, in those early days when the team is relatively small, is having. Everyone is aligned to the same culture and values, which often includes that we all muck in when we need to. Until we get to a point where we can be a little bit more single discipline and single role. But
that's it. I mean, everyone, excuse me, everyone's got roles. Sorry, everyone's got a role. Like I say, I think as the business has evolved, people need to sometimes shift roles for the good of the business. So like, I remember we had a CAD designer and he decided to leave, which, was fine. He had my blessing from that. But then it's a case of, what do we do? Do we find that I've got somebody else who can step into his role? But then that opens up something else, another challenge, because you're pulling one from one department to another. He was prepared to do that. So he's now almost got like a split role between the two of them, but then it's managing that workload that's been dropped. So it's all about shifting people into different areas.
Yes.
But getting to the point where, again, we've had this conversation where you've got to almost, if you're short in those areas, you've got to try and fill them with the best person you can. And not everybody gets the culture. We've had people, the core team that I've got have been with us for probably I mean, Rich has been 8 years now. You know, James has been 7 years. Alex has been 4 years, maybe 5 years. You know, I think you've got to. We've had people come and go in between those,
Yeah.
and the culture's been wrong. And I think the issue that you've got is when you work for a big company, if there's a team of 50 and Dave doesn't like Steve, they just stay apart. You know, they don't have to talk to each other. Whereas with us, if I fall out with Rich, we work next to each other. We've got to suck it up, get on with it, and we can't allow that. And I think certain people have sometimes come in with from a bigger culture where they're not as close knit. Do you know? And I think that can be a drawback. So for me, if the team's quite tight, you know, quite close, you can almost, you know what you're going to get from the guys.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to have somebody who's going to cause a rift or cause a divide. You know, so you're all pushing for the same direction rather than one person that can make it all implode.
Yes.
You know, because they're almost that, they make things awkward.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a big thing. It's a big thing. The first question when Richard will interview somebody is, will they fit the team? And if they say how good they are, if he says no, I'm not really one to pursue it as such, because I think it will cause more of an issue.
100%. That it's very much something we found over time is, you know, and we always talk that traditional recruitment is we recruit on experience. Recruit on experience. The challenge is, the crazy thing is, you recruit people on experience, but we sack them on attitude. So why not?
It's finding the balance, isn't it? Finding that balance.
Start with attitude.
But then you see on that experience. I mean, our team. I think, like I said, our team's quite. I mean, I'm 44, and I'm the second oldest. You know,
right?
I think the team. We've got quite a young team, and I like that, because as long as because we've got certain ways of doing things, I like to make sure that it's all right pulling in a joiner in or someone who can work who's got all this experience, but they're almost set in the ways sometimes. Whereas I like people to be adaptable, where you can almost, everyone throws their experience in the ring to get the right result, you know. And I think sometimes with sort of younger members of staff, whether they be just out of their apprenticeship or early 20s, all right, they don't have the experience, but then they've got Richard, all right, but also, you know, to sort of fall upon, but also the guys that have been here for a long time. Again, they know what's expected of us. Yes. You know, it's silly things. It's like we go do the installations and we'll go onto site, and you can always tell that the companies that have pulled somebody, you know, the designer that's pulled somebody in that is inexperienced in doing the market that we're in. Yep. And it's silly things like floor protection, you know, tidying up. I've got this thing now. I remember we did a job down in London, and it was in Kensington, and I got an email from the designer saying that we'd left. Oh, no, sorry. The client had gone back. This all goes back to experience. The client had gone back to the apartment sort of middle of the afternoon. It's their house. They can go in it whenever they want to do. Yeah. We'd finished for the day. We'd left stuff in rooms that maybe shouldn't have been there. Yeah. You know, and the client had walked in and kicked up this massive big fuss because we'd left stuff in the. So now before we go, we have a proper, and we find sometimes that we almost leave apartments tidier when we leave than when we've arrived. You know, Brilliant. Because electricians are just the worst. You know, if any electricians sort of listening or they're watching, they are the worst. They've got pockets, they're like leprechauns, just spilling like offcuts from electrical cables everywhere. So, but yeah, like I say, we just learn. It's just experience. Brilliant. It's just experience. I try. The guys now know what we're about, what we're trying to achieve, the sort of clientele that we're dealing with, the design, what the designers expect, and what's expected. You know, what the client expects of the designers. So, yeah, it works. We're still learning all the time, but what we have learned is we put it into practice. You know, so that's
brilliant. And I think, you know, you were a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
There's a few people, really. There's a few people. There's a couple that I sort of call upon when it depends on what it's regarding. I know that I don't know everything about manufacturing, so I'll speak to, like I said, Richard's been great because he's been. I mean, like I said, Richard's an old school joiner. Yeah, he knows the way it should be done, and he's the best joiner we've got in this place by far. I pull him in the office, which is sometimes great, but sometimes not. But he's fantastic. So Richard's experience of how things go together, fantastic. But also people that, you know, I think again, the team we've got, there's a core of three of us. You know, the ones that I call upon. There's me, there's Richard, and there's James. We can generally find the solutions to most things that we need on the shop floor. When it comes to efficiencies and bits and pieces, I've got a friend of mine. He's one of those guys. He he had his own business. It went really well. He knows manufacturing. He knows efficiencies. He knows his numbers. You buy him a breakfast and he'll tell you whatever you need to know. But he's been really good as a sounding board. I've got this idea. What do you think about this? And he'll say yes or no. And it goes one or two ways. I'll either be all ears, or I'll try and convince him that my way is right. But then we'll do it his way anyway. So, but it always seems to work out. So there's him. There's a guy called Lee that I've worked with quite a lot. You know, for the years we've known each other for 20 years now, and he's a good sounding board. He's great because he's been in manufacturing. He knows the pitfalls, the highs and the lows. He's had the mix of the both. So again, you know, if I've got any questions about it, he's good to talk to. And then my other half, she gets it. To be fair, she probably gets it a lot more off the cuff.
Yes.
When I've got a frustration.
Yes.
You know? And she'll say, I don't know what to say to you, John, but I'll listen.
Yeah.
Which is big, you know, it's big. So it really, yeah, various different people. And like I said, the team has their opinion, you know, and we have these meetings and it'll be a case of, I don't know every answer to every question. If you've got any better ideas, let's try them, you know, let's try them, see if they work. So yeah, various different people really.
Wonderful. And have you picked up any favourite quotes or sayings that you find yourself catching yourself using?
I've got two, and I've taken these from when I started my apprenticeship. One of them is, people don't care how you get there as long as it looks good in the end.
Great.
So you can. And what I mean by that is, if you make a mistake on the bench or you go the long way around manufacturing it, as long as it looks good in the end, the client will never know.
Yeah.
As long as it looks good, you know. And the second one is, this is what I sort of put into the guys. I would never leave something in somebody else's house that I wouldn't have in my own.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as in like the style of it, but the quality of it. So that's massive, because it means that the guys and what we're putting into people's homes, I appreciate how much this stuff costs. And I also appreciate that not everybody is a multimillionaire. So sometimes Mr. Joe Bloggs has worked their asses off to earn the money to have this fancy piece of furniture that we've made for them. So I appreciate the amount of effort that they've gone to sort of, do you know what I mean, to generate the money to be able to pay for something that we've made, you know. So that's the main two. And I think, to be fair, if I sort of live by those, you know, if I sort of use them as a basis, I can't really go wrong, you know. So
brilliant. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. John, what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout this journey so far?
I'm quite resilient.
Yeah.
I'm probably stubborn. I'm probably more stubborn than I think I am. Credit's a bit. I don't take credit very well.
Okay.
I sort of think maybe I work hard. I care about people, and I care about the stuff that we do.
Brilliant.
What else is there? Yeah, probably those four or five things.
Brilliant.
But I also sort of know that I don't know every answer to every question. You know, you sort of a lot of business is winging it, isn't it? You know, you wing it. You put the basics in. You think you've got it right. Until you do it, you've got no idea. But you just wing it. You know, and that's it.
At the point at which we think we know it all, we're already limiting our ability.
Exactly. You learn something else. Yeah, exactly. It's
absolutely.
Yeah, but like I said, the thing about, I think I said to you before, the thing about business, I was talking to one of the guys, and I think one of the things is where 90% of having, if you've got the right people and you've got the right team and you've got the right procedures in place, 90% of having a business is really, really easy. You know, if you've got the gift of the gab and you've got the sales and you've got the factories geared up, it's where it needs to be. But that 10% is very, 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 very hard. Yeah. And it's that you spend more time on. The rest of the 90% almost looks after itself. That 10% that just deserves all you, that's the bit. That's the bit that people underestimate, I think, is that last 10% to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so looking forward a little bit, so what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think, well, hopefully the future's bright. I mean, like I said, we had a slow start to the year this year, but I think a lot of it is down to the people that we deal with still have money. You know, that's and I'm not trying to sound like I'm being big-headed, but they do. But I almost think that sometimes when the market, you've got to be prepared to change the market. So like during COVID, before COVID, our main market was London. And because it was all foreign investors, a lot of the people that bought these apartments didn't really know what it would be worth in 6, 10, 12 months time after after COVID had gone. So I changed the business up to Cheshire. And to be fair, Cheshire worked really well for us. We've sort of made some really good avenues with some really good designs, some really nice people. We're doing some really nice projects for some high net worth individuals. Like I said, we've got a couple of footballers on the books at the minute. I'd like to sort of continue that. I think the marketing of the business can be better. So that's the next challenge, is to get the marketing where it needs to be, but also make the business more sustainable so that I'm not the face of the business on every project we do. I'm there in the background, but it's almost a thing where the business, the website, the marketing is working for itself, and we're bringing leads in that way. And I think, like I say, you and I have had a conversation about maybe going abroad, sort of looking at I'm not saying international just yet, but more towards sort of into Europe. We've sort of dipped our toe in the water a little bit with did a job in Belfast, I did a job in the south of France before, and I think it's just it's broadening our horizons, and sort of, rather than being localized to the UK, we can sort of look at markets elsewhere and take what we do abroad. It's that's the next challenge, and that's what I'm sort of looking forward to trying to get my teeth into without, I've got to make sure that the work in this that we're doing over here doesn't get affected. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, why can't we take it abroad? That's where I want to be, which has got its own pitfalls with the euro. It's got, with Brexit, and so hopefully next 12 months, hopefully.
Exciting times. It's very exciting times.
It is.
And I'm interested to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now.
Have a plan. Have a plan. I think have a plan. I think an idea is great. And I, like I say, I've winged it. I think I could have probably made things a lot easier for myself by having a proper plan. In hindsight, like I said, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But I don't think just because I've winged it doesn't mean that it's the right way to do it. It just works out all right for me. That which is great. But I think have a plan. Be prepared for a lot of hard work. I think when you have a business, people assume that as soon as you've got a business, you're laying golden eggs and you can start spending money willy-nilly on whatever you want, and you're going to buy a fancy house and a fancy car. It doesn't work that way. You've got a lot of work in the background to get, a lot of work over many years with a lot of sacrifice. And also, I think you should also make your loved ones prepared that it's not as easy as it sounds. The time that you give up to this business, you can be working evenings, you can be working, certainly when you're starting out, there were times when you'd lose track of the hours that you're doing because of the London, or you'd be here, or you'd be there, or you'd be everywhere, or you'd be quoting. You've got to quote every single job you get, and you've got to make the inroads. And once you get your foot in the door with people, you've got to try and look after those people. So they can be sending you an email at 9 o'clock at night. You've got to respond to that email there and then. So there's a lot of time, taken by starting a business. But I also think it's rewarding as well. The other side of things, I've seen my kids go do school plays, or parents' evenings, or sports days. You get the time to be able to do that because you are in control of your own time. Absolutely. So, I would say do it, but I would say plan. Definitely plan it properly and have a support. Try and have some sort of support network there that you can fall upon if you need it. If you need the advice.
Brilliant. And if you started again, is there anything significantly different you think you might do?
In terms, what with the knowing what I know now.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything significant that you do differently, do you think?
Yes, I would know my numbers.
Cool.
I'd know my numbers. Yeah, because like I say, I winged it for a long time. Never had a real grasp of the numbers. I think if I would have known my numbers, I'd have been probably in a better position than I am now.
Yes.
Because I think cash, like I say, cash flow is massive, and without knowing the numbers of a business, or without knowing the numbers of what what you're selling, or what you're costing, or what you're going to sell it for, I was quite fortunate because as much as I left the last place under a cloud, what he'd taught me was very good because it helped set me up, you know. But I think I took certain elements from that were good and bad, and I evolved the bad and I used the good. So yeah, to answer your question, I would probably know my numbers. I'd have had a better plan. And that's it, really. That's it. I think the way that I've done it is being the right way. I've always been careful with the money. You know, always been. I mean, I'm a tight Yorkshireman. You know, so I've always been tight with the money. Buy what you need to buy. Don't overstretch yourself. Don't take out more money than you need in the offset, because that's where people fall down by taking out way too much. Within 12 months, they can't pay the bills. You know, you get a big deposit in, keep it in the bank until you need it. So yeah, know your numbers. That's a big thing I would say to myself.
Brilliant. Very sound advice. Very sound advice. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
An 18-year-old me. It's not that long ago, though, to be fair. So, it's hard because I almost fell into it. I had this idea of being self-employed at some point in some way. So I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss. I would probably say take more risks, I would have said. And I don't mean by going, like, I'm not trying to contradict myself by what I've just said, but I would say certainly try and grow a little bit faster. In a planned way. So what I'm saying, I would never say don't start the business. I'd say plan it properly, don't wing it, know your numbers, but if you get the starting bits right, if you planned it properly and you know your numbers, take more risks. You know, probably that, you know, but I certainly wouldn't say don't do it.
Brilliant.
I'd say 100% do it. 100% do it, because it can be quite rewarding. You know, it can be hard, like it's very hard. You know, but it can be quite rewarding to see where you've got to.
Wonderful. Brilliant. Well, John, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. It's been really fascinating. And for anyone that's interested in contacting you or Innovate Furniture, what would be the best way to do that?
Probably, if they would look on our website, it's www.innovate-furniture.com, or we've got Instagram pages. We're on Instagram. I think it's Innovate_Furniture. Have a look on there. You'll see the logo, which is the black ring with the eye in the middle. Or give us a call, you know, 0113 256 9955. So, or email even, really. So, which is sales@innovate-furniture.com. So, Brilliant. But yeah, any project, any designers want help, then we're here, ready and waiting.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, it'd be great to swing by another 6-12 months and just see how things have developed to move forward, and whether or not the plans of going to Europe are coming to fruition. So, but for now, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Chris. Nice to see you.
Cheers. And you. Thank you.